guys, welcome to the video. I guess I'll call this my official gear and equipment video for 2015. There have been a lot of really cool things happening with like companies and sponsors that I'm working with, which have definitely had a big impact on my current basic setup, that is the core components, the amp and the guitar. So for the video, I figured I'd take you through some of the features of both of these. And I guess I'll start with the amplifier. So this is it. This is the amp I got to work with DV Mark on. I ended up calling it the Marigold, named after my current band. And I guess the premise of this amp was really two things. The first was obviously to try and create the characteristics that I like in terms of tone and response, especially when it comes to soloing. And the other premise was simplicity. That's just a theme that's always been really important for me. I've never been a big fan of a lot of bells and whistles and push-pull knobs and boosts and onboard effects and all that. So you can see just by looking at this, it's a real simple setup. Two channels with separate tone controls on each, with the exception of this sort of master presence knob that sits proudly here in the middle. DV Mark logo, which lights up as either green or red depending on which channel you're on. I'm actually on the green channel or the clean channel now, and right away you'll notice there's a gain knob on the clean channel here. And this is partially because I've never really been a huge fan of clean channels on amps. I like the sound of clean guitar, but I don't usually like clean channels on amps because they always just seem to be a little stiff or a little cold. Maybe in a sense too clean. So even the stuff that you'll hear on any album I've ever done, anything that's, regardless what it is, it's generally the sound of me playing through the crunch channel, but with the guitar volume rolled way back. For me, it's just that in the past has always just been a much more dynamic or more responsive or more lively version of a clean. But in this case, I don't have to do that. I have my guitar volume all the way up, and I can feel that power. And what's nice is that I can sort of control the dynamics of it. So if I wanted to play something light, that's not going to be, aggressive in any way, it behaves a lot differently than it does if I sort of dig in a little bit more. And I especially notice it with a lot of the, sort of single note stuff. If I do something like, it's real punchy, so I really feel it. And the other nice thing is that with the gain knob, I can actually sort of convert this clean channel into another distortion channel, or a lesser distortion channel. So I can play, I can pull it back and it cleans right up. Always ends up being clean enough for me to do anything that I would typically want to do with clean. Even as clean as if I had to sort of simulate some acoustic guitar thing on stage with an electric. If I got stuck doing something like, that type of thing. But either way, it's really versatile, and it's a really fun, probably the most fun clean channel I've ever had to work with, so it's pretty cool. So the crunch channel, or the red channel, would probably be best described as a collection of characteristics that I wanted, particularly for like lead guitar. So for me, the notes have to be very clear, very forceful and separated, and that usually means the attack has to be very, very instant, very immediate, and also very pronounced. So, I really want to feel the attack of the notes. This is something that's really important for me, and probably for a lot of players like me who aren't doing a whole lot of, like alternate picking type stuff, but who still want all that, definition, particularly with like faster playing. So the actual nature of the attack or the impact of the attack was a really important issue for me as well. You'll also notice a really strong emphasis on the sort of upper mid-range frequency that allows notes to really kind of cut through, especially for like live soloing. But for the most part, it's a very straight-ahead amp that would probably reside more or less in the British tone category. Like I said, very immediate, very upfront. I always do this test when I try out a tube amp that I call the basketball test, where I'll take like a series of open strings and kind of muted, weird picking thing here that sounds like, to determine whether or not it has that sort of punchy, bouncy, percussive characteristic that sort of reminds me of, a bunch of basketballs bouncing on a hardwood floor. So if an amp does that successfully, it'll usually get my attention because it sort of reveals its ability to provide that kind of separation and, the punch that I like. It's also a 40-watt amplifier, which makes it a lot easier to push the output stage and get that sort of natural compression, which, without waking up the neighborhood. And let's see, as far as additional features, we've got effects loop, ohm selection, input for foot switch. One of the really convenient features on this amp is a voltage selector, which prevents the need for any power conversion due to usage outside of the US, which for me is really, really nice. I guess the last thing I'll say about this amp is that it definitely keeps in the tradition of the company's ability to produce really lightweight gear, and that's with everything they do, bass amps, guitar amps, even their cabinets. Not sure how they do it, but this amp is definitely no exception. So for you gigging musicians, you may find this to be amongst the most attractive features. But there you have it, the Marigold amp by DV Mark. So here it is, the new guitar that I was able to work with Carbon on. We ended up calling it the GH24. And this really is, honestly, the coolest guitar that I've ever owned. And I think it's partially because it's the first time, really, for me, that I've been able to work extensively with a custom guitar company that really puts such an emphasis on, maintaining a high standard, and who were willing to address all the details that came with my often very detailed requests. And also in an age where so many companies are outsourcing, manufacturing to overseas for the sake of keeping production costs down, these guys are doing everything in the States, which has an obvious and very noticeable impact on the quality of all their instruments. That also, of course, afforded me the ability to really work very closely with them on all the specific features. So we've got 24 fret bolt-on neck, one of their first. And at first glance, it probably just looks like a very nice offset double cutaway guitar with a gorgeous top, which it is, but it's actually a lot more than that. One of the first unique things that we did was some chambering of the body, and this was for a few reasons. First, it makes the guitar a little more resonant, or resonant in a slightly different way, a more rounder, more open sort of sound. And in this case, it really helped to sort of offset some of the brightness that can sometimes result from a lot of maple on a guitar. We've got maple neck, bird's eye maple fretboard, obviously a really nice flame maple top, which, I generally like on guitars, but the chambering really offers a nice balance in the sort of prevention of an overly bright instrument. The other nice thing about the chambering is that the guitar ends up being very comfortable in terms of weight. So it's a very light guitar with a very big sound. One of the other unique features is the neck, which is a 20-inch radius as opposed to the sort of standard 14. And this results in a very fast feel and the ability to get it very low action without fear of buzzing, so you can really kind of rip around on it. Another unique point for me personally was the opportunity to finally get away from the Floyd Rose. Nothing against Floyd Rose, it's been a great bridge for me for many years. But it was nice to move into a more standard style bridge, just because these days it's a little more appropriate for my playing style, since I'm not really doing a lot of the crazy, dive bombs and all the crazy whammy horse noises and all that stuff. So this is their proprietary standard bridge with, as you can see, a very large block. And that's very cool because it results in a noticeable increase in sustain, which is something that's probably worth considering when you, start getting into chambering. Other than that, we've got the yet-to-be-named signature pickup in the bridge, which is basically a very balanced, sort of vintagey sounding pickup. Another really cool feature is the frets. We're using a metal alloy combination for the fret wire, which is harder than nickel, so it lasts a lot longer, which is really nice for me because I tend to really beat up frets pretty bad. But it's not as hard as stainless steel. And I do love stainless steel, but luthiers really hate stainless steel because it's really difficult for them to work with. So this is a really nice compromise, and the frets end up being kind of golden color, which is very nice aesthetically, and it initiated the whole theme of gold hardware all around. I also ended up going with the same pickup configuration that I tend to like, which is 2 humbuckers, a full-size humbucker in the bridge and a mini humbucker in the neck, from which a variety of tones can be accessed with the 5-way super switch and its ability to kind of split coils on both pickups in different configurations, so you can get a lot of, different kind of, sort of stratty tones. I believe that just about covers everything. So there you have it, the new Carbon GH24.